Can you combine sprinting and weight training into one workout? I received a question on that subject from my Instagram account. Now, this also follows up on last week's video that looked at sprint contrast training, which involved uphill and downhill sprinting and on the flat sprinting and the potentiating and neural benefits. The key with contrast training is that one activity will prime the next activity. You'll get greater potentiation. You'll fire up your fast twitch motor units and muscle fibers to a greater extent if you combine the right exercises into the right sequences. Now, the issue with weight training is that yes, it can potentiate greater high-powered output, particularly if you lift heavy weights as fast as you can. The transference in the moment of the workout is going to be a potentiating one, a neuronal one, and not a technical one, whereas a contrast set of uphill and downhill sprints obviously has a much more directed integration. Also, potentially, doing heavy weight training, for example squats or cleans before sprinting, could induce potential risk for injury. Obviously you would need to warm up specifically for the sprinting if you're doing the weights and the sprints in the same workout. If you're not and you're doing the weights an hour or so later or later on in your second session of the day, then there could be some structural weaknesses as you've broken down muscle fiber, proteins, and therefore going flat out again, sprinting wise, may not be the best combination. Of course, it also depends on how much lifting was done in the weight training session. Obviously, the more you do, the more fatiguing it can become, and therefore the greater the potential for injury risk subsequently. You always need to let your body recover after very intense workouts. So my answer to the Instagram questioner was, I don't actually do that. I will do the sprints first and then the weight training afterwards. We will do downgrade and upgrade sprints as I've indicated, and then for some of the jumpers, not all of them, there will be a strength and conditioning session afterwards, but it won't be necessarily a high intense one. There will be a reduced intensity. I said some of the jumpers. Basically it's those who are very familiar with my training methods, who've been training for quite some time, and their neural systems and their physical systems have got up to speed with the way that I train. Therefore, they're less likely to suffer from neural fatigue when they go on to do the weight training after their, in the case of the specific workout that I'm referencing, the downgrade and upgrade and on flat sprints and drills workout. A while back I made a video on French contrast training. I mentioned French contrast training as it is a way of combining weight training with sprint work. Now that utilises various exercises, normally 4, along a speed power continuum. You start off with heavier, slower, but nonetheless fast executed exercises such as heavyweight squats. Then you move to a plyometric exercise, then a lighter weights exercise, lower loading on the bar, lots of bar speed, and then you do an even faster activity, for example a sprint. I found that French contrast training was too intense for my athletes, given that for the 5 to 6 days a week that they're training, we are always combining contrasted sets of training. So you're sprinting, as I've indicated, the gradient work, plyometrics loaded with medicine balls, plyometrics unloaded, sprints loaded with medicine balls or weighted jackets, or Lila Exogen, and non-loaded sprints. So there are plenty of potentiating contrasts in my training week, and to add in a specific French contrast training session or too much volume, too much intense volume. And I quickly worked out that for me at least it wouldn't work. If however you were doing a more separated training program where you did jumps on one day, weights on another day, then the weights on another day could be a French contrast training one with adapted inclusions so that you're perhaps not risking injury. There is quite a lot of research that indicates that performing heavy squats or heavy load weights before a sprinting session can elevate sprint performance. Now, as I've said, the loading has to be controlled so that it does not disrupt the sprinters' mechanics or their fatigue levels. Additionally, I know of many elite athletes who will lift the day before a competition or even a couple of hours before so. They will target specific muscles with specific lifts, and sometimes they will do cleans, sometimes it could be squats at a heavy load, and this is done for stimulation, for potentiation for the subsequent competition later on in the day. Another reason why that can be done is for tonus, for muscle tone. Jumpers like Ivana Spanovic like to have a certain feel within their muscles that will help them perform better. Now, this can be enabled through specific weight training or through massage. Well, I hope the answer to the question has helped you get an understanding of how you could combine weight training with sprinting into a workout and other options. At the time of making this video, I'll likely be in Turkey warm weather training with one of the athletes I coach, and you may have seen some content on my other social media about what we get up to and perhaps what I get up to as well whilst we're away training. As usual, good luck with your training and any competitions that you've got coming up. Do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.